I have really very short comments on Annalisa and on Kai also about 90s. And Annalisa mentioned this Russian exceptionalism. This is an old idea, and this idea is supported, at least implicitly, by many in Russians, that Russia is an exception. Russia does not fit into any classifications, Western theories, and so on and so forth. I think it's a very dangerous idea, because here we start from this exceptionality, we come to the irrationality, and then the idea that умом Россию не понять, that we cannot understand Russia with our brain. You have to feel it, yeah, with emotions, and this is absolutely bad, because okay, Russia is a large country where the territory plays a role as an probably independent variable, but Russia is not an exception. Russia is exception in the degree that any country is an exception. Finland is also an exception. So I wouldn't go in this in this Russian exceptionality. I think it's both academically and politically it is dangerous. And concerning what Kai was saying about 90s. I believe this was, I think, this is what mass media in Russia want us to believe, because they need to make assessment about what is now in Russia. You have to make comparison. Everything is relative. So to understand in what kind of a happy country we live now, we need to have something worse. So 90s are presented as kind of very dark, very uninstitutionalized, unsettled years. So lihi 90, everything was bad. My personal experience is completely different. It was absolutely the most interesting time I ever had in my life, because it was freedom. It was interesting. Yeah, you didn't know what to expect. It was very vivid. The society was vivid. It was fantastic. So I would say this is what we have now. I hesitate to say that, but in a way it is boring. It is boring. In 90s it was not boring. It was maybe too exotic, but it was not boring. Thank you.
Ari, please.
Let me just continue. Annalisa asked for comparative research on Russia, and Russia is engaged with most of the huge global and European research programs. So we have really a lot of comparative data on Russian society. So if anyone would like to conduct research on Russian society, economics and politics, there are huge data banks all over the world where Russia can be compared with whatever countries. And then what is interesting, if we are looking at those comparative studies and the results, it's not the Russia that is exceptional. Finland is much more exceptional than Russia on the global scene. We are the exception, not Russia. Russia is a much more normal country than Finland.
Actually, as to this data, we have now launched a big profiling program in our university. It's about digital humanities. In the framework of this program, we are trying to develop also new methods in analyzing big data. And Russia is one of our targets in that sense, because really there's a lot of data about Russia, but it's a huge amount of data, and it's very difficult to handle it and to get the needed information from that huge amount of information. Maybe we take a question from the audience.
Chairman, in the 90s, I was in a position to have a very close contact with our Russian partners. In many occasions, I was leading the cross-border cooperation between Eastern Finland and the northern part of Russia, the whole region surrounding the capital, the second capital of Russia, St. Petersburg. Repeatedly, one topic was raised, and that was the lack of transformation in Russian economic structures. We Finnish partners and friends of Russians, we repeatedly told our Russian partners that the real richness of Russia is not in the soil, it's in the heads of the Russians, because Russia is finally one of the big culture nations in the world with tremendous scientific traditions. Also, the performance of Russian armed forces and the military technology was a proof of that. The question that time that was often posed was how to make the transition so that the transformation from military technology to commercial civil technology could be achieved.
Okay.
Today the same question is raised. And my question to our panel is, how much is there today relevant research about the transformation of Russian economy and the impediments on the way?
Comments on this? Kai, do you would like to?
Yeah, yes, maybe academic colleagues can comment on the part of how much there is Western or Finnish research on Russian transition economy. At least I know that there is quite good Finnish history of this kind of research, which I at least appreciate. But to comment on this topic, which is totally right, that it's a problem of Russia, I think that currently actually one very severe problem is that before starting to print more money and before starting to cut pensions, the Russian state is diminishing the financing of education, science, etc., diminishing the finance for that they actually would need the most. So actually there is a problem in that sense that there is not enough finance for those things that they actually need the most. But hopefully there would be a transition to knowledge-based economy, but it just seems to be quite hard to see how it would happen.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's truly relevant. I think that we see some slight shift in the way that the economy is understood at the moment in terms of what is the significance for military industry in Russia and how Russia will try to use that to boost its economic growth in the future. That's going to be an interesting thing to follow. But I would like to shortly, briefly comment on my colleagues' comments on exceptionalism or Russian uniqueness. I hope that I was able to convey to you that I don't think that Russia is unique, that I do think that Russia is kind of a normal society in the sense that we do need to compare it, that we can compare it, and as Harri Melin was saying, there is big data already available. But it's another thing to have big data and a second thing to have the right research questions and people who can systematically do the comparison, because it requires that you know not just Russia, but you know the other societies as well, for instance Finland. So it requires a lot from researchers to do this kind of comparison in real terms.
Irina, yeah.
I want to comment briefly on your question because this is absolutely crucial question for Russia. The transition of the mode how economy is functioning, and this is extensive research on this in Finland and in the West and also in Russia. In Russia, we also make research, and this is it is what is known in Russia under the word modernizatsiya. This is the modernization. However, this is the problematic, because the main results of the research would tell you very simply two things. That first of all, to make modernizations, you need incentives. Yes, you need incentives, and they are not present in Russia, because the main driver of modernization is the state. There are, okay, we like the state, we dislike the state, but there is no other driver. Population cannot do modernization. Business cannot do modernization. This is only the state, and the state is doing modernization only when it has, and this is the conclusion from the literature, when the state has no other choice. So when you are like in Georgia, like was in Georgia under Saakashvili, and Russia is still too rich. The country is too rich, and this is one problem. And the other problem is that this is the danger when you start modernization. Okay, you want to do it economically, but you never know. The authorities never know when the economy will be converted into politics. So because when you cannot, this is not there is no guarantee that the state starting real modernization, not sending signals, but really starting modernization, when the state will be always able to control it. So no incentives.
actually modernization as a word, as a political concept, is not anymore very actual in Russia, because it was Medvedev's word, and now they speak about importosamischenie, compensation of import, and it is a Putin's program for that, and he often uses that word. And what do you think? Does this program have any success, and how many decades it will take? Yeah.
Okay, this is the import replacing. There, yes, it was. However, it is also a type of modernization. But we say import replacing because we want to again to speak about the incentives. This is the sanctions, okay, and this is the counter sanctions that gives us incentive for modernization. However, it never happened in the world history because these incentives are situative. Yes, there are some products that are replaced, like French camembert. So the good camembert is replaced by bad camembert, but still it is a camembert. Okay, produced in the Krasnodarsky Krai, it's wonderful. Yeah, but this is not the modernization of economy. Yeah. And yeah, okay. And many Western products we are not able to replace because we don't have.
But you have now not value but valia, and it is the same. Almost the same. Yes. Actually, President Halonen.
So I'm very interested about this economical cooperation, whether it's possible, and of course, a little bit being a very much a Finn. So of course, what you told about the possibilities to balance the budget in Russia sounding some like familiar, that cutting the education and social benefits or something like that. But this I think is very international. That's been done many places, but of course a little bit less difficult situations. But how the bilateral trade between the Russia and Finland? So traditionally, I remember that we always wanted to get a not very expensive raw material for the forest industry, and then we wanted to get, of course, a recent price for the energy. But how is it now? That what are we doing? Is it better possibilities for the small and medium-sized enterprises, or can they take a risk in that way? Not only to make enterprises in Russian side, but also the possibility to enlarge the spectrum of the bilateral trade.
Who wants to answer? Okay.
Yes, a very important question, and I think that first of all, of course, these wood imports are still important for Finland, and maybe even more important within the next 10 years, because there is fortunately investment in Finland to forest industry now, and we will need more wood. But then, yes, we are actually to some extent also part of the import substitution, because certain amount of Finnish companies are investing to Russia currently, even if the economy is collapsing, because now it's not profitable to export so much, but it's more profitable to invest there and to get at least some share of the value added to the Finland headquarters. And there is, of course, this traditional risk problems which are for individual companies, and of course now there has been a bit less possibilities to try to solve this, because the Economic Commission, Trade Commission is not working normally, and we have had only special kind of president meetings and ministerial meetings and not normal meetings. But on the other hand, I think that still there has been possibilities to get messages to Russian authorities, and at least the overall attitude towards Finland is still quite positive, and there is a willingness to, at least to some extent, to solve our problems in that sense, and still we are cooperating very much, or business is cooperating very much with the Finnish government, of course, as it has been before. And actually about this import substitution question, is it possible? There was actually a very fresh report from the Central Bank of Russia, which states quite frankly that the ban on foodstuff imports has hurted more Russia than European exporters, and the problem is that if it might give some investment to foodstuff industry in Russia, but it won't be competitive towards Westernized. So this kind of like closing your economy, it usually doesn't create effectiveness, but actually you use your resources in wrong things that you can't do effectively.
Yes. Sometimes we don't remember that there are some Finnish companies who are doing well in Russia. For example, Paulik is selling more and more coffee in Russia, and although the prices are much higher than they used to be, but nevertheless they are doing very well in Russia. Actually, we have to finish our panel, but I would like to ask you because we are all the time talking about problems in Russia. I ask all of you say one positive thing of contemporary Russia development and what is going on there. Harry.
One thing that has been strikingly rapid in Russia is the adoption of internet and everything that is happening on the net. So Russia has made a giant leap in going to eBay and all activities taking place in the internet. So this kind of wireless society has developed very rapidly, and I believe that that will have an impact on the whole society sooner or later.
Thank you. Irina?
There are many positive
Only one thing, no lectures now.
Positive things I wanted to say in the country you live in and you love. One positive thing is Russian young people, because among the Russian students I teach Russian students, and this is a constanta. Yeah, under any regime, you still have the young people who are bright, who are decent, who are honest, and who are very good. And so I have very different students, but I always have a group of the Russian young people whom I really admire.
Thank you. Ilkka?
Of course, environmental cooperation is very positive. As I mentioned, this Krasny Bori, it will make the health of the St. Petersburg people even better than it's now when it's constructed. And one thing which would make the situation even better is that we should free the financing of environmental investments in Russia from sanctions. That would benefit both, let's say that would benefit at least EU and Russia, and most of all it would benefit the Baltic Sea and the climate.
Okay, thank you. Anna-Liisa?
Okay, as Irina said, it's really difficult to pick just one thing. That perhaps this is because of my background in public administration studies, that I would say that I applaud every civil servant in Russia who goes to work every day, does his or her job well, tries to develop his or her skills, re-education, learning from the internet, learning from best practices of the world and so forth, and doesn't take bribes all the time. You know, these people in their small way of living make a difference, just like in every other society.
Thank you. Kai?
Well, digitalization of bureaucracy in Russia has been dramatically fast, actually faster than in Finland, I think, and also it comes for transportation in big cities. Uber has actually got the most of the grey economy out from Moscow taxis and so on. It's remarkable how fast this section has developed.
Okay, I think after this panel we know a little bit more about Russia, but more important is that we understand better Russia. Thank you very much, our panelists.
Thank you.